How's it going, Commanders? So, before we get started on today's video, I want to apologize for the delay on the new Hotwire loadout video I was making. These past few weeks have been kinda hectic with work, and I wasn't really happy with how the first video I was working on played out. I felt like I could have done a little bit better, so I'm putting more of an effort with this one here. But I do have to say that this new hero Hotwire is incredibly powerful. I did not know that they could make the Going Constructor build viable. Mind you, there are some hiccups in this build that do tend to mess you up, such as the cooldown and the energy consumption. But it's why I went through around 4 different kinds of builds to be able to make it work. Some focusing on damage, while the other focusing on staying alive. Because as those who play Save the World know, the Going Constructor ability is not the best. It's pretty low on the tier list, just going above Crescent Kick, and everyone knows how useless that ability is. So, starting us off with our main hero, Hotwire has the commander perk Overcharge. While in Going Constructor, each hammer strike causes chain lightning, dealing 120 nature damage to up to 3 nearby targets. So, basically the same as the vacuum tube weapons, which I love dearly. Such a huge crowd clearing weapon loadout. But if you continue reading, it also says raising your shield up for 2 seconds overcharges your next strike, causing each struck enemy to chain 120 energy damage, and it goes up to 8 targets. This is great because you are not only able to chain to more husks, but you're also able to keep swinging and just chain lightning everything around you while the energy damage is still going on. You are a crowd clearing tank, a walking EMP in armor. So, moving on to the build, these are the first 2 that I started out with. This one, I didn't really know what I was doing since I had a low understanding on what Kinetic Overdrive was about. I honestly thought it was like a passive class perk damage boost for constructors, like how soldiers have their Suppressive Fire class perk, where consecutive shots deal additional 3% damage. And it is kinda the same, but for constructors, Kinetic Overload deals 25 base energy damage to enemies around you after knocking back or staggering enemies, and if you crit with your melee weapon, it increases impact damage by 10% for 5 seconds, up to 5 stacks. So that is an increase of 50% impact damage. Notice how I said impact damage. You need to stagger or stun an enemy with your melee weapon or your Going Constructor ability to get that damage boost, and you will rarely even get it. But as you can see, this is the first loadout I got. Happy Holidays to lower the cooldown of Going Constructors, since it has a cooldown of 100 seconds, which is insane. But with Happy Holidays, it drops down to 60 seconds. Still a lot, like a whole lot. But we have another hero to help us out with that. For our support, we have Arlene Iza, who heals us when using melee attacks or our Going Constructor ability. She heals 15% of our missing health. So if we are low on health, one good swing and we got a lot of our health back. Plus, with Hotwire's ability to chain lightning, we're going to be hitting a lot of husks. We also got Director Riggs with his perk Direct Threat, where eliminations with Going Constructor extends the duration up to 1 second, up to 10 seconds. That lowers the cooldown time to around 50 technically, since we are going to be using our Going Constructor longer. We also got Ankylo Kyle with Saurian Grit. He heals us up to 6.375% of our max health whenever we activate Kinetic Overload. Again, I used this loadout when I didn't know how Kinetic Overload worked, so this is really not the best hero to use as support. We also got Steel Wool Sid with Maximum Overload, which increases Kinetic Overload damage by 50%, which isn't bad, but you are not going to activate Kinetic Overload a lot, so this is circumstantial at best. And finally, we have Black Knight Garridan with Knight's Impact. Not only does this increase your hardware weapon impact by 33 points, eliminating with a hardware weapon decreases your Going Constructor cooldown by 1 second. So I would highly suggest using something like the Storm King's Fury that summons meteors from the sky to lower the cooldown of your ability. So this is the first test run to show how bad the first loadout I made was. Again, I was solely focusing on the going constructor ability and its connection with kinetic overload. It started out great. As you can see, I was able to clear out the first wave of husks, and this is a power level 140 destroy the encampment mission all by myself. I didn't have any support or any other players buffing me. This is all purely me. But as you can see with the going constructor ability, it kind of fails with long range enemies. You gotta be up close and personal to be able to use your chain lightning ability with Hotwire. If you are surrounded by blasters and zappers, you are a goner. Still, if you saw earlier, the initial hit with Going Constructor was 652,000 points of damage, which is incredible. But the chain ability, or at least the energy element of the ability, does 62,293 points. Still, for each chain and with one swing, those are impressive numbers, especially if you add any support that increases the damage of your ability, which we will get into in the later hero loadout. So these are the last two loadouts that I made to improve on the first one, seeing as how you're going to be an open target for blasters and zappers. The only change I made was removing Saurian Grit and Maximum Overload because Kinetic Overload was not helping us at all. So I pulled everything on survivability. Speaking of, I replaced Saurian Grit with Survivalist Jonesy to heal me with every elimination, and with Chain Lightning ability, I'm going to eliminate a lot. And to increase my Chain Lightning damage, I added Breakbeat Wildcat with her perk Battle Beat. Eliminating 10 enemies within 9 seconds grants Rock and Rift, which increases damage by 50% and melee swing speed by 32% for 8 seconds. But this also resets after every elimination moving forward. So you're basically able to keep Battle Beat on technically forever with Hotwire's crowd clearing ability. And the last loadout between the last two, I replaced Survivalist Jonesy with Warden Kyle. He has the perk Base MD. Don't forget, Hotwire is still a constructor, so he is able to protect your objective too. But with Base MD, any ally standing on the building that is affected by his base will be healed for 33.75 base health and 3 energies every second. Plus, the health and energy boost still applies after 3 seconds from moving off of the structure. So this not only replenishes your health and energy, it heals your allies as well, making you an important asset to your team. So this is a power level 160 evacuate the shelter mission, and if I remember correctly, this was a very difficult mission to do because this mission had healing death bursts, where when enemies died, they healed the surrounding husks. But as you can see here, this was not an issue at all for my guy. Thanks to the combination of Survivalist Jonesy and Arlene Isa, I am staying very much alive even while surrounded in a crowd of husks. Plus with the combination of Breakbeat Wildcat's Battle Beat, just the normal swing of my Going Constructor ability does insane damage. And with the Overcharge ability that lets me Chain Lightning 8 husks with one swing, that damage is boosted by an incredible number. Even with a 50-second cooldown thanks to Black Knight Garridan and the very powerful Storm King's Fury melee weapon, it takes me around 15 to 20 seconds at most to be able to pull out my Going Constructor ability again. Still, a big wait time, but so much better than having to wait for 50 seconds for this ability to come back. Still, I do want Epic to come out with a hero that lowers down the Going Constructor ability even more, as well as lower down the energy consumption for this ability. If they do that, then this loadout will be golden. Now, here is where a little dilemma is with this loadout. As much as I love this hero and his ability, it is still only a crowd clearing hero. This guy is used to erase all the squishies in the area, but against a mini boss husk, this guy falls off immensely. The only way this would ever work in any environment is if this mini-boss was surrounded by husks. I mean completely swarmed. That way, the Chain Lightning from Going Constructor would be able to just ping-pong back and forth to him and take a huge chunk of the mini-boss's health. But from what you can see here, it barely does anything. Again, this is because Going Constructor's main thing is to Chain Lightning, and it won't work if this guy has nothing to Chain Lightning to. And even still, you can see my going constructor does not last long without the extra eliminations to keep the duration going. So I need to step to the side, eliminate as much husks as I can to lower the cooldown time for my ability, and then jump back into the fight. But by then, it's kind of pointless since most of my teammates have taken the mini-boss's health down to less than half. So what's the point of me jumping back into the fray? And finally, in this mission, I'm in a power level 160 ride the Lightning, with the only difference being, instead of having Survivalist Jonesy on my loadout, I got Warden Kyle with base MD, which heals not only myself, but also my teammates. This also replenishes my energy to use my going constructor again after the cooldown is done, and I have enough energy to spare. My base is also inside to make sure it is protected, and to make sure that it heals and supports my teammates, since they are no doubt going to be on the ground level taking care of the husks. Also, a little side note, this is why you use tar traps instead of freeze traps near the beginning of your objective to stop smashers like this from wrecking your base. This is one of the few, if not only, ways to stop smashers from doing any serious damage to your objective. I also want to point out how useful going constructor was when staggering large mist monsters. I was tossing that smasher around like it was a ragdoll, and it is hilarious to watch. Okay, I know I've been ragging on about the whole crowd clearing with this hero, but it's just too fun not to point out again. You are just a tank of destruction with this guy. Every swarm or horde you go through is going to feel the damage, and they can't do anything about it because of the fact that you are healing constantly and your damage is constantly boosted with Rocking Rift. But as a final note, since there's not really much else to talk about, I am so happy to see Epic putting a bit of love into this game again, even if it's just a small thing like these heroes, because this was so fun to make. And again, I apologize for the lateness of this video. Life has been crazy for me, and I don't do this as a means of monetary or anything, even though I do want that to happen. So I do have a main job, and I have to focus on that instead of this. Hopefully the next video I make will be done quickly and more professionally than this. But other than that, if you guys like my content, why not leave a like? And if you commanders want to get more updates regarding the game, why not drop a follow? Until then, as always, stay safe and game on!